after I had about those 6 different patches of yards, I guess 6 different yards, I started to realize after like the first 2 that number 1, I had a pattern, but number 2, I had a system in place for each yard to come. And it hit me right then and there that I was like, wait, this is really, really comparable to life. What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Morning Takeaway Podcast, aka the Inside Influence Podcast. And today, obviously, I'm in a different setting. I have moved back up to Northern California for the time being until I go on this crazy month-to-month kind of journey of picking a new place. So obviously, different background. I'm outside. I'm probably going to sweat a little from the forehead, but I just wanted to, obviously I had to find a new spot and something peaceful and something that I could bring you some content and ultimately get out what I want to say and stay on the same posting schedule. And with that said, I think you're gonna see this on a Thursday in the middle of, and you might see this a year from the time that it's released, but on that Thursday I'm gonna be out of town, literally with no service, and I'm really looking forward to that experience, just to get away from service, get away from the phone. And with what I do, obviously it's kind of tough to channel that energy away from being on my phone and what makes my living, right? So it'll be fun to kind of disassociate. But that said, I will have this ready and scheduled to post for that day, but I'll be back on that Friday. So again, you might not even see this until like December of 2037. So who knows? And I apologize for the random sun coming in on my face, but we just got to deal with what we got. So anyways, I just want to bring you a quick takeaway today. And if you saw my Instagram story the other day on Instagram, obviously, I was mowing. And I was mowing about, a few acres at least. And I was on the mower for 5 hours straight. And I didn't have any headphones in. It was just me and the project. And the project was to mow the yard, right? There's about 100 and some odd acres on the land that I was mowing. And I had a different couple yards on the land. And, I was obviously in the middle of mowing, it hit me. I started to have these deep it was kind of meditative, honestly, just being on the mower and just letting it ride and getting the work done. And, I have a weird thing for just being out in nature and, being just in the quiet, although I did have a ringing lawnmower literally just smacking me in the face for 5 hours. But nonetheless, I came to this conclusion and this life comparison, this life metaphor, this life analogy, and I posted it on my story, but I wanted to dive a little deeper into that in long form. So my analogy was that life is kind of like mowing, or it's kind of like any project that you embark on. First of all, you just have to decide that you're going to do it. And then you have to start, right? So that's first and foremost, number one. This can go for any kind of fitness goals, relationship goals, financial goals, emotional goals, your just personal, anything in your life. You just have to commit to starting, and then you have to take the first step. So for me, that was turning the mower on, getting out there in the 100-degree weather, and saying, hey, I'm going to get this done, right? So that's the first step. Now, as I was going through it, I recognized that I was, trying to find the most efficient way to get to the end goal. The end goal was to get the freaking yard mowed, right? And I think in life that there's a lot of times that we look for shortcuts and we look for ways to obviously be more effective, but it's different. You can't shortcut a lawnmower. You can't just, it only goes a maximum speed. And I think in life, a lot of times we should look at it like, hey, we only have a maximum speed, a maximum bandwidth to get to those goals or whatever we might be chasing for. And as I, started to go through this ideology in my head and this metaphor, I started realizing, like, not only is there no shortcut to getting this done in a shorter period of time, but I had to create a pattern. And if you've mowed a yard before, you obviously know there's some kind of pattern you create, whether that's you go back and forth and make the stripes, or you go around in circles until you get to the very middle and you have one last little strip, right? Whatever that pattern is, you follow it. And I started to realize that after I had about those 6 different patches of yards, I guess 6 different yards, I started to realize after like the first 2 that, number 1, I had a pattern, but number 2, I had a system in place for each yard to come. And it hit me right then and there that I was like, wait, this is really, really comparable to life. Because as you know, in my own life and on Instagram, on Snapchat, on anything, I really harp on the lifestyle habits and doing those. The book Atomic Habits by James Clear, it's so, he paints the picture so easily, because atoms are these super, super micro things, right? And they're so small. But when you compound them and you create these habits, you start to form a different kind of life. And those habits then become patterns, or patterns become habits, and those habits become systems. And then your systems become your standard, and your standard becomes your identity. And wow, that's a mouthful, but I think there's something so true to that. And I guess with that lawn mowing experience, I started to realize, like, hey, I've got a pattern in place. Obviously, mowing the yard is not going to be a habit. I mean, it should be if you own a home and whatnot, but I'm not up at that property all the time. So I had a pattern, just cutting the grass. And then I realized, hey, I have a system in place to get each one of these yards of the 6 done. And each time I did it, I was realizing, hey, I'm gaining more and more momentum, and I'm gaining more and more just flow. And I think we can all relate to those times in life where we get into a really good flow. Things start to feel a little slower. They feel you're super productive, and all the good, happy hormones start to kind of bounce off of each other, and you just start to get this wind of the idea that you're basically unstoppable. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I've had that feeling multiple times, and it's just like you get in this groove and this flow of life, and that's what was happening when I was mowing the yard. And as I'm saying that, it sounds so silly to say, like, hey, life is like mowing the yard. But when you dive into it deeper and you have these kinds of reflections, I think it's important to talk about it. And I think if that's something that resonates with somebody on a different level, rather than just saying, like, hey, my friend, hey, we'll say Johnny, hey, Johnny, you need to create better habits and patterns and and standards to create your identity with your systems, right? Like that's really hard to digest for a lot of people. So when you have these things in life, and I know that me growing up and hearing things on YouTube or Spotify or podcasts, and people were able to relate stories to real life matters, I was able to digest it and be like, whoa, that is so true too, right? And that was just one of those things that happened to me, and I was like, hey, I want to put this out there for you. So I just kind of, dive a little deeper. So, with that said, I think that's about the gist of what I wanted to come on here and say with my takeaway. Ha ha ha. I'm a rhyme poet, whatever, and you didn't know it. God, I'm a weirdo. But anyways, the idea that, you have to have healthy habits, and when you start to pick up on those patterns that you're doing, and this can go on the contrary as well. If you could pick up on the patterns that are all going downhill and you have bad patterns, well, that's going to create bad habits, and then you're going to create bad systems, and you're going to find yourself around the wrong people, right? And it can go a numerous amount of ways from there. But I think that's so applicable for vice versa, right? And that's what I'm harping on here, and just like the little things, like drinking all of your water every day, right? Like eating whole foods, move for 30 minutes, wake up at a consistent time, go to bed at a consistent time, like these little habits, and then start simple, and then you can begin to add on to those as the time goes by and you get interested in other things and whatever it might be. But and then that creates your systems, and you'll find those systems, and a system can be defined a little bit more in depth in the sense that it's a bigger picture habit. It's a bigger picture. It's kind of combining that pattern and that habit together and finding a system, a bigger picture of systems that work for you to create your lifestyle. And I think you'll find as you experiment with things that your values will play into those standards, and you hold yourself to a higher standard. And it's so silly for me. Something so silly is like every time you use a dish, clean it, because then you never have to sit at the dishwasher and everything for 30 minutes cleaning all the dishes, right? It's just, you just take care of it right then and there. And that's a system that works for me. And ultimately it compounds into these lifestyle ways of being more efficient and ultimately, like creating more time in your life. And I don't know, I'm going off on a whole different tangent right now. So moral of the story, mow your yard and create systems and healthy habits to ultimately create your identity and who you are, because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. And if you know that your identity is something that you value and you are much deeper than maybe what other people see you to be, I don't know. That's another conversation as well. But your identity is who you are at your core, and a lot of that has to do with that self-confidence and building that self-confidence, doing the things that you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do them. Honesty, being honest with yourself, and ultimately that yields great results. And that doesn't mean success. It doesn't mean, and success is different for many people. There's many different meanings for it just in general, but it's just, your own fulfillment and contentment. So with that said, I think that's all I've got for you. I do not have my laptop with me for a random question generator. So with that said, I guess we'll do a little fun fact. What's a fun fact about me? Fun fact would be that when I was in 5th grade, I had a piece of art that was nominated to go in an art center in Nashville. It's called the Frist Center? The Frist Center. I don't even remember, but it was some beautiful art museum in Nashville, and one of my pieces was in there for like a month or so, and woohoo, 5th grader. And so yeah, that's a little artistic side with the creativity, but that's all I have for you. If you don't mind, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you're the first one to see my videos. Share this podcast if it hit on some kind of heartstring for you. Share it with somebody that you think might take a little piece of it with them as well. I always say if somebody could get on a camera and a microphone and change my life, I hope that I could have the same kind of impact on somebody else. So with that said, I hope you have an awesome freaking day, and don't forget to smile.